Okay, here we go. Another edition of Red versus Blue, episode number 66. My name is Mike Stark.
And I'm Keith Curry.
And we are back. We got a laundry list, as usual, of things we want to talk about. But the thing at the top of the list, obviously, is the Gaza peace process. And for once, Democrats, Republicans, everybody's praising Trump on this one.
And rightly so. For those who have thought that I have not been sufficiently pro-Trump as the red part of this equation, today is your day. He actually engineered a ceasefire and a release of the hostages and the introduction of a peace process where everyone has failed before. And he does, in fact, deserve a lot of credit for that. People are saying it happened because he got tough with baby Netanyahu. And he did get a little bit tough with Netanyahu. But unlike Biden, he also got tough with Hamas. Biden was limited. He couldn't get too tough with Netanyahu. He had him pull his punches. But the Republicans sort of always had Israel's back. So there was limits to what he could do there. And Biden had no leverage with the people who are funding and giving advice to Hamas. Trump successfully brought in Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey to pressure Hamas. And they figured the money was up. They're going to kick us out of our sanctuaries. So we had to do a deal. And that, I think, was the key for Trump getting the leverage on Hamas that Biden never had and being able to make a deal work. And, of course, he had leverage on Israel. And after the attack in Qatar, Netanyahu lost a lot of his political cover. And, you know, he needed to be negotiable as well. And Trump used that to bring the process to bear. 20 hostages have been released. The bodies are being returned as we speak. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been released. 200 U.S. troops and troops from other countries are on their way. That remains to see how controversial that becomes. The future of Hamas is still to be determined. They are currently patrolling the streets in Gaza. They are executing people who were deemed to be collaborators with Israel and opponents of Hamas. So we'll see if they actually give up power. But if this works, and there's a lot of ifs and a lot of contingencies yet to be resolved. So if it works, he may actually really deserve the Nobel Prize that he's been angling for ending wars in countries he can't find on the map.
But, you know, peace has come there before and has left us. There's been any number of other people that have brought peace to that region, and then suddenly it goes away, right?
It has been, but I believe now the Palestinian people have had enough of the bad leadership that they've been subjected to by both Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, and Yasser Arafat before that. Now they're ready to sort of move on and have peace. And more importantly, you have now what you haven't had before, which is a coalition of Muslim Arab nations who are willing to step in with money, troops, material, and support to ensure its success. And that might be the difference this time.
Let's move over to American politics. We have seen some breaks that have been unbelievable to me. In fact, I think I sent you a note when we were thinking about doing this episode. It kind of started with Marjorie Taylor Greene doing a CNN interview with Wolf Blitzer, which, first of all, I'm not sure she's ever been on CNN before, at least as a guest in studio. She was on for about 15 minutes with Wolf, and it sounded like it was a different person. If you just walked into that interview and listened to that interview, you would think, no, this is not a crazy person. What is your take on all of this, and what other things are going on that maybe I don't know about?
Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who did not have a good reputation as an independent thinker in Congress, indeed has broken. She broke first on the Epstein files. She's one of the signers on the discharge petition. She's broken on the need to protect health care because she sort of understands where her North Georgia constituents are in terms of the impact of that bill. And I give her or her staff, whoever figured that out, some credit, because a lot of Republicans who are marching in lockstep over the cliff on this are going to find very bad political consequences from doing it. And she's sort of the canary in the coal mine who's figured that out and has tried to get out in front of it. Now, there are factors with her. She's sort of anti-Mike Johnson. She had been a supporter for McCarthy. She's had some other personal things. You know, she and Lauren Boebert are in a sort of a catfight. But I give her credit for being an independent thinker. And she reflects, Mike, the fissures in the Republican Party and in the MAGA coalition specifically. And as Trump has accelerated his disruption of American politics, these fissures have emerged. And she is the one that's the most recent, maybe not even the most notable. It's important for our listeners to keep in mind that Trump is not, nor does he pretend to be, a conservative. And the Republican Party is no longer conservative. Tariffs, investment and ownership in private business, repression, political repression, siding with the Russians, none of that is Republican dogma. Now, the Republican Party actually at the convention 2024 did not adopt a platform. The platform became whatever Trump says it's going to be.
Right.
So that creates an issue right there. And people who have been principled conservatives or even just sort of extreme conservatives or libertarians now find that there are places where they are no longer comfortable. And that is what's causing this split. Ted Cruz and Rand Paul have broken on the use of regulatory power. They think that's a misuse of government. This week, the governor of Oklahoma broke on the misuse of the National Guard across state lines. Tom Massey has broken on the Epstein files on spending and other issues. You know, it's interesting that pedophilia is one of the key underlying elements of the whole QAnon thing, because they believe that was the whole deal with the restaurant in Washington, D.C., that they had pedophiles in the basement. And so when you have that sort of hook there, they get locked into it and they don't break out of it. They actually believe some of the crazy stuff they say. And that's what's weird. There's going to be a break on involvement in foreign wars. The first time one of those 200 Americans gets shot at in Israel, you're going to see a very big reaction on the right. A lot of conservative media has been influenced by Russia. So you've got now a Russian contingent who have been funded by RT, Russian television, and others like Tucker Carlson. They're sort of splitting up. Here's an example. This week, there was an announcement that Qatar was going to have an air base in Idaho with their Air Force. And the right blew up. Laura Loomer and Steve Bannon basically said, this is a non-starter. Finally, J.D. Vance had to come out and say that this was fake news, that it was misinformation, that was never what was said. Now, in fact, those were the very words that came out of Pete Hegseth's mouth. There's going to be a Qatari air base in Idaho. In fact, we're going to train their pilots there, just like we've trained pilots from Saudi Arabia and from NATO countries. Singapore has, for a long time, had a similar kind of a situation there. It's not a base. It was just that we had a Secretary of War or Transportation or goofiness who can't put a sentence together straight and who said that. And Hegseth was forced to go out and basically walk back his comments. But that set the right off because they have no patience for that kind of military presence on American soil. I think most Americans would also find it objectionable, frankly. But what it is, it's a training base. Tariffs have split fiscal conservatives off, along with the investment in private corporations. Most conservatives look at the tariffs and say it's a big economic mistake. That's going to be a problem. That's going to split the populace off on social spending because tariffs are tanking our soybean farmers. It's damaging the budget. So social spending among red states is going to go down. And all of the people who are dependent upon those resources or farm subsidies or farming agriculture are going to be hurt. Blacks and Hispanics who surprisingly formed a big part of the Trump coalition, and which was the greatest opportunity for the Republican Party to reform itself into a long-term majority party, are likely to split off given the fact that none of the Trump policies have been supportive of Hispanics or blacks since he's been in office. You've got RFK on healthcare, who's got his own constituency, but that is splintered too between those who believe in vaccines and those who believe in witch doctors. So the coalition is going to splinter a lot. Economic issues, taxes and tariffs, government involvement in private companies, the Epstein file cover-up, regulatory control over speech and media, health policy, race and ethnic issues. Trump's own team is turning on themselves. We haven't heard from Dan Bongino in a while because he's been put in a box given the fight with Bondi and Patel. Hegseth, the knives are always out for him because he continues to screw up. So it's going to be problems on the right, and that coalition is going to splinter. And it's going to be exciting to watch.
And going into the midterm elections, that's not a good place to be, I would think.
No, it's not. I mean, Lisa Murkowski, for example, one of the more moderate Republican senators, came out today and said that the Comey thing was a mistake. So you can only trample on long-term conservative policies that William F. Buckley or Ronald Reagan would have recognized for so long before some people say, wait a minute, I used to believe this. And I think I still do. And Trump will be on the wrong side of a lot of those issues.
You told me before we went on the air today that Katie Porter is the leading candidate for governor here in California, although this past week she sort of stepped in it, didn't she?
This has been a viral self-destruction of the likes of which I really haven't seen. I think maybe the Democratic candidate for Attorney General in Virginia is undergoing the same thing, where it came out that he advocated shooting people. But Katie Porter, she was our congressman here in Orange County for 3 terms, is known to have a very prickly and volatile personality. She was living in public housing at the UCI campus while she was in Congress. Threatened to walk out of an interview with CBS, which was, of course, filming the interview while she was threatening to walk out. Basically said she didn't want or need Republican votes. And frankly, she probably doesn't, but that's not the thing you say out loud. You say you want to appeal for everybody's vote and you sort of move on. But she gave the interviewer a hard time. She threatened to walk out. And that led to a plethora of videos made mostly by her staff or by other media where she is screaming, even dropping the F-bomb on her staff, blaming them for walking in her shot. She was known to have a lot of staff turnover and to be an obnoxious person. Her husband in their divorce filed an affidavit claiming that she threw a pot of steaming mashed potatoes on his head. So it's a person who we might say is temperamentally not well suited for government. She was the leading candidate. We'll see what happens now in the subsequent polls. Already some of her Democratic opponents, Antonio Villaraigosa, Tony Thurmond, and others, are posturing themselves to take advantage of what they think is going to be a collapse there. What surprised me, Mike, was how viral this went. It went on national television. It was all over CNN. Yeah. There were 2 very lengthy stories in the New York Times with links to video clips about it. So there is no one in California. It was in the Mercury News. It was all over the papers. There is no one in California, and for the most part, nobody in the world who hasn't heard about it so far. And I think it's going to be very damaging.
But does this volatility make her a candidate for maybe a higher office?
Well, that would be a food fight to see her and Donald Trump up there, Donald Trump running for his 3rd or 4th or 14th term.
You're right.
But
I'm joking, of course. But
we hope that we can get to a more collegial type of politics in America and get beyond throwing mashed potatoes and F-bombs.
Correct.
And stuff like that.
Correct. It was just a thought, and a bad one, I must admit. Okay. Prop 50 is a big issue in California. I got my ballot. It's got one thing on it and one thing only. So it was easy to fill out this time. Yes or no on Prop 50?
Well, that's the big question. And of course, what Prop 50 does is it suspends the action of the Independent Redistricting Commission. It imposes a map that was drawn by Democrats to eliminate 4 Republican congressional districts. This is done in retaliation for Republican efforts in Texas and other states. We have some early numbers of whose ballots have been returned as of 2 days ago. 262,832 Democratic ballots, 149,299 Republican ballots, and 113,222 independent ballots. So what we're seeing is that Democrat votes are leading. They typically lead at this stage in terms of voter return. The Republican vote may be actually a little bit ahead of where they normally are. But the independents are going to make the difference in the race. This is one of those things. It's a bad public policy measure to change redistricting midterm. California will lose some excellent Republican congressmen who may be replaced by some Texas yahoos who will not do the party on a national basis any favors. It's all being done at Trump's request so that he can avoid congressional oversight in his last 2 years. And at the end of the day, both Democrat and Republican across the country, some great political careers and futures are going to be eliminated. And it's unfortunate that we're doing this. This election is going to cost California over $300 million to undertake it, money the state really can't afford. One other thing, apparently white old people are voting the most so far, which also, again, is typical for this stage of an election.
Okay. And finally, the government shutdown. How long are we going to be in this mess, Keith?
There seems to be no real effort to finish it anytime soon or to fix it anytime soon. By 17 points, pollsters are saying the voters are blaming Republicans because Republicans are in control. But overall, it is Democratic policy initiatives that are going to take the biggest hit, because now Trump is able to selectively eliminate agencies, departments, staffing that are of Democratic constituents. He's holding back grant funding for transit projects and other projects that are important to mayors and governors. The Democrats, this was a 7-week extension for which, 3 weeks, I think, are now already passed. The Democrats would be wise to vote for the extension and then let the actual damage happen first in terms of healthcare premiums. And then they can have something they can blame on Republicans that people will have felt and understood. That's, I think, the strategic error for the Democrats here.
Yeah, and I think no matter what happens, this healthcare issue has been highlighted by all of this. And I think that people are going to take a close look at it. I know as a Medicare Advantage user, I've gotten notification saying that watch out, the premiums are going to change, everything's going to change, your benefits are going to change, yada, yada. The insurance agent that I use said that things are going to be very dramatically changed in 2026 for Medicare users. So that's an indicator right there.
Yes, premium shock is going to hit everybody on January 1st in Medicare, and it's going to be significant. People are going to notice it. It's going to impact their spending, which will impact economic activity. So it's going to be a real challenge, and somebody is going to get blamed for it.
Anything else we need to talk about, my friend?
Well, just in realm of politics, Governor Janet Mills of Maine decided that she's going to enter the race for Senate against Senator Susan Collins. Collins is 72. I think Mills is 78 or 76. So she may not have a long Senate career, but she's a credible candidate. And now you've got 3 Republican seats in the Senate that have credible opponents, North Carolina, Ohio, and Maine, where theoretically Democrats could either break even or take control of the Senate. It's been sort of assumed that they could never get to the control of the Senate up to now, but things are changing. And this is a result of, I think, Trump being more focused on his ego and bringing people around to his appointees and that kind of thing, as opposed to creating policies that people can run on successfully. So stay tuned. The Senate just got interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we move towards this midterm election, I think we're going to see a lot of dynamics change in politics and in how things are perceived and all of that. And I guess that's a reason for you and I to stick around, right?
There's going to be a lot to talk about, Mike.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that's going to do it for another episode of Red versus Blue. Like us on Facebook, subscribe if you haven't already. We love to hear your comments. There's been more and more comments on the various platforms. We appreciate that, good or bad. In fact, yell at us if you want to. Go ahead. Doesn't hurt anybody to yell at us on the internet, right?
No, it happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been happening on your Facebook page lately a lot. Anyway, all right. We will be back very soon with another edition of Red versus Blue.
Thanks, everybody.